And thank you for joining us on PM Express. Tonight we are talking to the majority leader. Parliament is back. Today is their first day back from recess, but they are coming back in the midst of a dire economic circumstance. As you know, the domestic debt exchange happens to be closing. Today is the deadline, but also the majority leader is coming into the House and is going to be exchanging pleasantries with new faces on the leadership bench from the minority side. He's been in the House for so long, and he's had in the last Parliament and then this one, he's dealt with Harun Idrisu, but he's no more. It took a lot of people by surprise. I'm curious to know his thoughts about that. And then, of course, there has been a reshuffle today, and then we'll look also forward to what he expects this particular, this is a session of Parliament, you call it?
The meeting of Parliament to do before they go for another break. So there's a lot to talk about. Thank you again for joining me, Mr. Chairman Sabonsu. It's almost become a ritual now when Parliament resumes or before you break. We always do an assessment, and we do expectations with an assessment. I'm happy that I can talk to you again, and that's different circumstances. Let's just start, because did you expect these changes on the minority side? Were you surprised, or did you anticipate that it was going to happen?
Well, they themselves were surprised. So certainly I would also be surprised at what I learned. But as I said today on the floor, the constitution of the NDC allows the party outside so to do. They compose the leadership. One would think that it should be in collaboration or in consultation with the parliamentary group. You know, in the Westminster system, the leadership of the party is in Parliament. So the chairman, the leader, the whips, everybody is in Parliament, and it is the parliamentary group that constitutes it. In the presidential system, it's a bit different. The party exists outside, and as far as constituting the parliamentary group leadership is concerned, they, in collaboration or in consultation with the parliamentary group, would do that. So I think that, of course, it caused some furore, the changes within the circles of the NDC parliamentary group in Parliament. And everybody would be a bit surprised. But if you go into the constitution, you realize that nothing untoward has been done per the current constitution of the NDC. But I think that going forward, they should look at their constitution again. At least if the party has to do it, it has to be in consultation with the parliamentary group. Because especially in opposition, the party, the greater burden is on the party in Parliament to run the show, for the party to ride on its back. So if it is that the party is doing that, well, it's like the horse wagging the tail, not the tail wagging the horse. But for now, nothing untoward has been done, because that is what their constitution provides. We have a similar situation, the NPP. And if you look at the constitution of the various political parties, it's about the same. So maybe by this, we all need to do serious introspection, so that if decisions have to be taken, at least the opinion of the parliamentary group will be sought.
Is the minority leadership stronger or weaker with this current change?
Well, as my original chairman would put it, whom am I to be so judgmental on this matter? Ato has his strong sides, strong, points, and equally so for Kwame Agboja. And I would say so of the deputy leader, who is also one in his lifetime has been the minister responsible for energy. And don't forget, it was done, in my view, because at the time, oil had come from Western region, and they needed to have a say, which is why he was made a minister. Not perhaps the only reason, though, but primarily that was why. And by that, he's gotten some relevant knowledge about this sector. So if he's made the deputy minister, deputy leader, as the chairman of the party put it, the administrator of the three would serve some good. Haruna came onto the job a lawyer by training. He has his strong points as well, a lawyer, and demonstrates great versatility. So I would say, comparing one-on-one, each of them has his own strong points. But by and large, I'm looking at the value addition to building parliament. And for me, that is what matters. We'll look to see.
Does it add onto the value that already existed in the leadership that you worked with before now?
I wouldn't want to be judgmental on that.
I don't believe that this also takes away anything.
I wouldn't want to be judgmental on that. Atu is a good friend, and maybe like a brother to me as well. And he has the capacity to also learn on the job, and he's very rational in his approach to matters. And I think that he would also contribute his quota to building Parliament as an institution, strengthening the oversight responsibility of functioning. I look forward to working with him, and I think whatever happens will justify the goodness or otherwise in the decision that was taken by the NDC. But I hope that we'll be able to work together. I'm looking how to get the two sides to work together to build Parliament as a strong arm of government, not the individual maybe differences. So that's how I'm looking at it.
A stated reason for their removal, of Haruna Idrisu and his crop, and the bringing in of Atu Forcing and his group by Asiudin Ketia, when he spoke recently, was that they have for the very first time a Speaker of Parliament from the NDC fold, and yet they were loggerheads with him. He said that publicly, and he felt you're not taking advantage of that, because it's an advantage that we needed to use, and he felt the change had to happen so that the two sides, the NDC leadership, will work better with Alban Bagbin. What do you make of that reasoning?
This is a difficult question for me, because you cannot interrogate the question without maybe finding fault with one side or the other. I don't want to do that. Suffice it to say that...
But do you see any tension between Haruna Idrisu's group and the Speaker that will warrant such a change?
Well, I think there were two occasions where maybe the minority chief whip disagreed with the Speaker.
Yes, vehemently on the floor.
The first one was the Speaker referring the
censure?
The conduct of 3 members of Parliament to the Privileges Committee.
Yes.
You know, the position of the chief whip, the minority chief whip at the time, was that the Speaker had no such authority to have on his own, in responding to a petition, to have referred the matter to the Privileges Committee, and that the petition ought to have been ferried or shepherded in the House by a member of Parliament. So I think that was one disagreement. If you ask me, I think that on that one, the chief whip got it wrong, because even though he was right in quoting or referring or leaning on the provisions relating to petitions, the other side, which he didn't look at, that is in respect of privileges, is that the rules provide that on matters of privileges, the Speaker can do what he did. The Speaker can, on his own, suo moto, make such reference to the Privileges Committee. So I would say he was looking at just the aspect of petitions, But on privileges, regardless of any provision to the contrary, the Speaker has the authority to do that. The other side was the vote on censure in respect of the Finance Minister. The House Committee that the Speaker, at the very outset, referred to that we needed to form this ad hoc committee, and the Chief Whip challenged the Speaker that the Speaker couldn't do it on his own, right? Yeah. Yes, I think the rules provide that in that regard, it ought to have been done by a member by a motion that is constituting that committee, right? And you remember that when it came to my turn that day, I moved the motion before I sat down that the House, I moved the motion that we constituted an 8-member committee, ad hoc committee, to go into it. It was just to, fill in that void, so to speak, so that everybody will be covered. But these are matters. I mean, we are not talking to you. I never indicate that I know it all, even though I go through the rules on almost weekly basis to, shore myself up when it comes to the debate on the floor. But I could also get it wrong. So I'm saying that in these matters, we could still resolve them. So if it was solely or principally predicated on that, I think it would be unfortunate. For Haruna, I mean, we talk, and as I indicated today, we become more like brothers than friends.
But that's too cozy, very suspiciously cozy.
How suspicious?
I mean, two sides.
You work to facilitate the work of government business. You must find that relationship with him, so you're able to talk to him, to let him appreciate where you're coming from, and he can also trust you. So you build that relationship. Haruna, when he disagrees with you, he will tell you, leader, this one, the policy position of my party is that we are opposed to it. He will tell you, hey, this one, I will disagree with you. Bring your troops. I will disagree with you. That's it. So I go to Tamale. He organizes TZ for me to eat, and sometimes he even houses me in a hotel. That's how friends are. Avoka, when he was the majority leader, anytime he came to Kumasi, I was a minority leader. I'll take him to a sport, and then we drink together. I buy what is it? I buy a confirm, and then we eat together. I mean, that's how we're able to build confidence and trust and move the agenda of Parliament forward. I was a minority leader. He was a majority leader. Today the skills have turned. I'm the majority leader, and they are in the minority. What of that? Look, I can tell you, Ama Kofi Boy, even before he came into this position, I had indicated to him that, I'd heard that there is a beautiful hotel in the Western region in his constituency. And he extended a hand to me. He said, look, come stay for 4 days, I'll pay for it. It will be at bring your family. I mean, that's how we are supposed to.
Because, I mean, this is relevant because in the midst of this change, there were some who actually expressed a view with the NDC that the change was necessary because they were sold out. The industry was sold out. And that they were too cozy.
Nothing of the sort has ever happened between me and Haruna. For Muntaka, he was lately criticizing me for things that I had not done, but that's different. So, what would I do to buy off Muntaka or buy a veggie? I mean, nothing of the sort happened. But because we are seen together, Alban, when he was the minority leader, the majority leader, right? Even though I say to him that he never invited me to his office here in Parliament, we were close buddies to the extent that when he was in trouble in his constituency, Parliament moved there
Yeah.
And I spoke for him that yes, I don't belong to his party, but if his party wants to change him, they should look for somebody with that vast experience to dislodge him, rather than bringing somebody from nowhere to come and replace such a person with tremendous experience who was contributing to building parliament. Right? Had I sold out to Urban? No. So if you're a majority leader, if you're a minority leader, you have to have and indeed cultivate a good working relationship. That's where it stops. It doesn't mean that one of them is, sold out to the other. It doesn't mean that at all.
Well, whatever it is, the change has left the NDC rank in Parliament divided. Yes, they met yesterday and they appear to have closed ranks. That was the public demonstration. I mean, they say that's a facade. But deep down, that divide of the more than 70 rebel NDC MPs who said, listen, send a petition, those deep cracks and disappointment will still be there. You are on the opposite side. Any divide, any weakness, some say, plays to your advantage. Is the MPP going to exploit that if it exists?
We are looking at building parliament as a strong arm of government. To me, that's what matters. To me,
no political advantage?
To me, that is what matters. As for political advantage, and people think that, okay, because maybe you have greater experience in the House and maybe perhaps much more knowledgeable in the rules of procedure, they are going to use it against them. How is it going to, help uplift Parliament?
With an election next year.
In the discharge of our responsibilities.
Yeah, but you have an election to prosecute.
Well,
Parliament
of course, in usual debate, a few things may come up and you may critique whatever somebody might have said. But in my view, it is not or must not be intended to humiliate anybody. It shouldn't be.
But to exploit it to have your way.
Well, I'll tell you something.
On the floor.
I'll tell you something. When we first came to Parliament, we were in the minority. J.H. Mensah was our leader. J.H. Mensah at the time, if you ask me, maybe the sharpest brain on finance and economics at the time. Well, J.H. Mensah would get up and is making brilliant expositions. J.H. Osuo-Champong would get up, Mr. Speaker, this man cannot go on this way because of this provision in our rules. Speaker Annan will look at it and then perhaps justifiably uphold the appeal of J.H. Osuo-Champong against J.H. Mensah. And we moved on, right? In fact, it was what encouraged me to pour through the standing orders to catch up with J.H. Osuo-Champong in order for me to be able to confront him when he rose to use it against J.H. Mensah. The rest is history. But I think that ultimately, how are we going to gel together? One, to facilitate government business, and also to grow Parliament as a strong institution, as an independent arm of government. That should be the bottom line.
Are you concerned, though, that if, as Nketiah's public stated reason, one of them is that the previous leaders didn't work closely with an NDC Speaker of Parliament, and possibly that's why they were appointed, then possibly it means a stronger bond between the Speaker and this new crop of leaders that then leaves you in the lurch a bit in terms of, how things play out on the floor in Parliament. Is that a concern for you?
Not really. Parliament will go by the rules. And the rules.
But the Speaker is the final authority.
Well, if the Speaker is wrong in his application of the rules, you can challenge it.
Yeah, but if you want to step outside the rules to appease your constituency, which is the NDC, I believe that will not be good for the image of the Speaker. It will not be good for the image of the Speaker, and I believe he himself would not want to do that, because if a Speaker makes rulings and then you are forced to live with it, but it's challenged outside Parliament. But that has never happened before. That has in the history of Parliament.
Yes.
Nobody has gone outside Parliament as an MP to challenge the Speaker. Of course, you had non-MPs doing so.
As I'm saying.
Yes, but that,
I'm saying
happened.
It's challenged.
Okay, so not
outside
necessarily
not necessarily
MPs doing it. Okay.
It's challenged outside Parliament, and the Speaker is found to be wrong in his understanding and application of the Constitution in the rules of procedure. What does it mean? If it's done, if it happens once, it happens twice, 3 times, then it will tell that the Speaker himself is also incompetent, right? So the Speaker would be careful in leaning on the rules to favor his constituency.
But you can be sure that if Asiedu Nketia said it, then he is a master of Parliament as well. You know him when he was here. And he has a very special relationship with the Speaker anyway. Many actually think that the Speaker and Asiedu Nketia had a hand in the change that has happened. You can be sure Asiedu Nketia will be pressing him that now work with this team.
Well, you press him, the rules should be your guide. You can't go outside the rules.
Well, you're very confident.
Well, if anything is done outside the rules, then certainly there'll be a checkmate. You can't go outside. You can't go outside it. The rules should be, will be flung at you that you can't do this.
Yeah, but
you can't go outside
that challenge or throw it away because
you cannot do that. You can't do that. Parliament is not an island to itself. Anything that we do should find expression in our rules of procedure and, of course, the Constitution.
Yeah,
the two of them go pari passu. So a Speaker who steps outside to satisfy his constituency, as I'm saying, really would bloody his own nose. And I don't think the Speaker would,
but you can
be eager to do
you can regard the NDC for seeking to enjoy the fruits of their labor in having an NDC man in the chair. You can't begrudge them. You would have done same.
We have had speakers. Speaker Peter Alajiti, a former chairman of our party. And when he first ascended the chair, the current Speaker threw that at him. You are a former chair of this party, MPP. I'll be watching you closely. You cannot be neutral. So I'll be watching you closely. Alajiti gave a response that yes, I don't forsake my past. I admit that I was a chairman of the MPP. You're asking me to be neutral. For that reason, I cannot be neutral. But all that is required of me here as a presiding officer is to be impartial, and I'll do that. When, in the fullness of time, NPP wanted to change Peter Alajiti,
it was the NDC.
It was the NDC
that defended him.
Yeah. And fielded him as the Speaker. So if you want to go down in history as an impartial Speaker, that is the path that you should tread.
And very finally, so the NDC side have changed their leaders. Will the MPP side change its leadership?
I don't know.
Is there reshuffle in the offing?
I don't know. It doesn't rest with me. The decision is for the party.
Because we are hearing that has been mooted already.
I don't know.
You do know?
I don't know.
That the party or the president had discussed this?
Well, I've not had any discussion with myself from anybody.
But have you been told about those conversations?
Well, I have not been told.
But you're aware that conversation has been had at some point, at some level?
The accounts have it. As an adage, penny do manti.
Okay, so you've heard, but you choose not to hear. Am I interpreting that proverb right?
I'm not adding anything to it. I'm not repeating it.
I mean, for those who don't understand tree, because this is a very deep tree proverb. I mean, it doesn't mean that, yes, I have heard, but I haven't heard.
You asked me the question. I told you I had not had that conversation with anybody. And nobody had also had that conversation with me. And you are pressing on. I said, penny due manti. That is it.
I'm just hoping that you could help us with interpretation.
Let your hope abate. Can we go on?
But the reason I've heard that has been mooted is a reason that Asiedu Nketia also gave for Aveji's removal. That Aveji had said he isn't running again.
Yes.
in the next election. Something you've told me.
Yes.
In my many interviews with you.
Yes.
And Asiodun Ketia believes if you make that statement and you're no longer in the game, then it makes sense to get somebody else in the seat who obviously will be keen on retaining his own seat in the next elections, and therefore, by extension, better advocate the party's cause as well. Many say that sounds like a smart idea. You disagree?
Well, those of them that have come on board, have we heard any of them tell you that they are not going to contest? Have we heard any of them tell you they are going to contest? So can you use that as an excuse? In any event, if the person says that he's not going to contest, does he divest himself of the party's interest? I'm not sure. So that's an excuse that might have been given by Asiodun Ketia. He makes something out of it. I don't see what I should make out of it.
Okay. I want to take a break. When I return, I will talk to Chairman Sabonsu about Parliament in the midst of the current economic crisis. I know many of you are eager to hear what Parliament may do, especially because of the time you're in. Coincidentally, today is the deadline for the debt exchange program, the domestic debt exchange program. But then we're also looking forward to an IMF program. Over the weekend, the president was actually appealing to the German finance minister to plead with China to come to the creditor committee, because without which we can't get an IMF. I just wonder what Parliament's role is going to be in all this, because they are directly the people's representative. I'll ask Mr. Bonsu's thoughts on that when we return. Stay with me. Thank you for staying with us. My guest is still the Majority Leader, Chairman Sabonsu. Mr. Chairman Sabonsu, so we are in unprecedented times, and Parliament just resumed coincidentally on the day when a big part of our economic survival, the decision on it revolves around today. If the finance minister closes the debt exchange program, the domestic debt exchange program today, he said he's confident that lays a path to an IMF executive board approval. Of course, barring what happens with the extent of that restructuring. I'm just curious, how is Parliament viewing what is happening?
Well, remember that during the recess, that platform
individual bondholders
of the individual bondholders came to us and to Parliament to present a petition, and they raised certain issues, among which really were the fact that some of them are pensioners and they are using the yields to pay for their medical expenses, some of them using it to cater for the education of their kids, and so on, and so the many faults. And I also thought, as I spoke to it the other time, which some people perhaps didn't appreciate, that, see, it's taking quite a lot for us to come back to the culture of saving since the days of the early days and the heady days of the PNDC, when we had these problems with savers or depositors at the banks. So I was saying that we needed to maybe engage further, even if we had to come to that final decision. If people understand and buy into what you want to do, which in your considered opinion you think will help salvage the cause of the country, it's important that we engage. So I spoke to it, and I also spoke to the fact that many of them, they belong to the middle class, and that, among other things, we should make sure that the middle class is not impoverished. Some people disagree with me and said, why was I talking only for the middle class people? If a petition comes to you from the middle class, you speak to them. Yeah. If it comes from any other person, you speak to them as well. But it was those of them who came to see me that I spoke to their concerns. But having said that, my prime concern at the time was, as they related, that there ought to have been some more consultation. And that is the point that I harped on. I understand, yesterday I was not available in Accra. But I understand, whilst we are away, that a petition was presented by them, the individual bondholders, the coalition of the individual bondholders, to the finance minister. And he made a bold statement that if we're not able to conclude the discussions with the IMF, the economy could possibly crash. That was a really biting statement, and could have several, that statement itself could have several repercussions. And so I'm only hoping that we'll be able to come to some amicable resolution of this. So I guess as a nation, we should come to the reality that is confronting us. How best do we salvage the cause of the Republic? That's how I'll end it.
Okay. Today, the Speaker of Parliament had instructed that Ken Ofori-Atta should necessarily appear before Parliament. It's almost like a summon to explain the domestic debt exchange. Is this something you're in favor of?
Well, to the extent that maybe he wants greater amplification to the populace at large through the representatives of the people, well, that could be a good call. Maybe it's a bit late in the day, and also attributable to the fact that Parliament was late in resuming. You know, we had earlier on intended to resume on the 24th of January, and later more or less rescheduled to 31st, and now 7th February. It's the first time in the history of this Fourth Republic that is the first meeting is beginning in a February date. Not the best. And I was saying today that that offers us just about 8 weeks of sitting, very short. Usually the first meeting is 10 weeks, 11 weeks. But this is a very short meeting because Good Friday is on the 7th of April. And the last Friday preceding the Good Friday is 31st March. So in all probability, perhaps we may adjourn on 31st March. That gives us only 8 weeks to handle all the issues that are on the table. So it's a bit late in the day, but let's see what we can salvage from it.
And so
because it will mean that maybe the finance minister may have to prepare income this week. If he's not able to do it tomorrow, Thursday is cabinet. So then it may mean that it may have to be pushed to Friday. But I have to have some consultations with the finance minister.
Yeah, the view out there is that this whole debt exchange program is causing a lot of pain for a lot of people.
Without doubt.
Yes.
Without doubt.
You know, and that your party, the MPP, the property-owning party, the party that has celebrated for its business friendliness, the party of John Kufuor, who termed this Ghana, this country, the gateway, you know, is the party that is superintending over this. May some say, even if the NDC was doing this, then yeah, I mean, maybe you understand because of but not the MPP. That must break your heart to hear. Well, I'm sure many of your friends, bondholders who are affected, pensioners, would have expressed this to you in your constituency. It must break your heart.
Well, recognizably, we are in difficult times as a nation. There are several policy options before us. You know, in finance, in economics, no position is sacrosanct. For instance, people may argue that, look, don't borrow any longer. Look inside, apply your own internally generated resources to develop.
That's the president's mantra. Ghana beyond aid.
Some may also say, borrow, go out there, borrow, invest wisely to stimulate the economy. The end is about the same. How do you have that balance? So you see, it is not just simple to say that borrowing is bad, don't borrow. Right? Just as it is not that simple to say that let's just resort to domestic resources only to develop. So the policy options are open to us as a nation. Which ones, there should be a determination. And that determination is often left to the government, the ruling government. Maybe there should be greater discussions before the determination is made. So that is it. But to the extent that we must recognize that we're in dire straits, that recognition must be made. How do we navigate it? We may differ in the approach of navigation. So that's where we are.
Do you accept, the party, I mean your government, accept full responsibility?
It's not my government. It's the government of the Republic of Ghana.
The MPP. Do you accept
it is
full
the administration of MPP,
yeah.
But the government is the government of Ghana.
But so that's what I mean, the MPP government.
It's not the MPP government.
Well, there's a party that formed the government.
The government is the government of the Republic.
True.
But let's go on.
You know what I mean. do you accept full responsibility for where we are?
Full responsibility?
Yes.
No.
Do you accept that you have
There is
failed?
some responsibility.
Okay.
Look, the debt overhang is one of the reasons why we are where we are. But is it the case that the debt overhang can be traced to the doorsteps of MPP?
Yeah, but
Successive administrations have added on to this.
that's true, except that yours is unprecedented. No government before you has ever accumulated this much debt.
How much is it?
Well,
in dollar terms, how much is it?
Currently,
in dollar terms,
we are
how much?
400 billion plus.
In dollar terms, how much is it?
We're 400 billion plus.
I'm saying, in dollar terms, how much is it? If you dollar rate it, you realize that the statement that has just come from you cannot stand any acid test.
But it is the fact.
It is not a fact. In dollar terms, what you are saying is inaccurate.
Well, but if you isolate your last 6 years,
that is what I'm saying. That what you are saying is inaccurate.
The accumulation.
When Kufuor was leaving,
yes,
what was the debt stock of the country?
Well,
climbing up to 122 billion in cedi terms.
Yeah.
If you rated it in dollars at the time, how much was it?
Did you concede that current
I'm not saying that government.
The unprecedented nature of the current crisis.
I'm saying that
something really unprecedented.
Unprecedented nature, yes, it's unprecedented.
In terms of the management of the economy.
Unprecedented. But let's look at the factors that have contributed to this. We're not ruling out the impact of the COVID-19. Before COVID-19, we're about plateauing in our development agenda, and indeed in GDP growth, which was several notches above what we inherited. COVID, we crashed, and even the year after COVID, we're about climbing up again, only to be dashed by this imbroglio, Russia, Ukraine, plummeting us down, you know. So these are the unhallowed combination of these two circumstances, unprecedented in the world. Today, even in UK, have you seen what is happening?
Yeah, I mean, I need to
so we are looking at.
I need to ask you a village question, because I know you are. A village question. Yes, I know you're a man of the people, because you're a member of parliament for so long, and you are in Swami, so you interact a lot. Do the people accept this explanation when you give them, when you tell them, when they confront you? They come to your house almost every day. I mean, this is Ghana. When you tell them this, do they accept
there's a
what
lot
you're
There's a lot of saturation of the atmosphere by propaganda. If you take time to explain, people tend to appreciate, but not to say that they like it. They certainly will not like the current situation, right? You explain that is why what has sent us here. I must admit that a government is also not elected to explain away problems, but to solve it, regardless, whether it's coming from outside or whether it's coming from inside. The government must be positioned to solve the problem, which is what government is endeavoring to do.
And in your constituency, and I go back there because you're an MP first before anything else, without which you will be James Sabonsu.
Appreciate it.
When you go there, and you interact with people. I mean, we saw what happened even when you attempted to communicate government's work for them. I remember that incident when, you know, they had to throw water at your vehicle, etc., etc.
At me, not my vehicle.
At you, exactly.
At my vehicle.
At you. Because you were visibly upset. And you were the representation of your government at that point. And so they took it out on you. I spoke to you after that, and you said you understood why they did that.
Absolutely.
Right? The people are angry, and so that's why they'll eat their leaders when they get angry, which is what happened in your case in a symbolic form. Do you accept that your government hasn't shown enough, one, empathy, possibly remorse, too much of blaming other factors and not saying we, and that we're going to fix a problem, and at least owning an apology? And maybe that's what is continuously fueling people's anger, because they haven't seen their leaders even show that they even understand their pain. You can see that as a problem.
Well, yesterday we went to Salaga, and in the company of the Vice President, we rode by 2 buses to Salaga. What does it mean? We appreciate that we are not in normal times. And so we must resort to measures that indeed would sympathize with the generality of the citizenry. So that in itself should tell people that we are concerned. I'm not too sure that anybody would rule out the fact that the COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukraine war have massively contributed to where we are today. There are policy options, as I started by saying at the very outset. Is it the case that maybe some of the policies that we embarked on did not yield the required dividends? It could as well be the case. Let's face it, we are humans. And if it happens that way and you have to change track, you may have to change track, right? Some people say that, so where we are, maybe we're not consultative enough. I'll tell you what I did as the leader of the House. In the lead up to the crafting of the budget, I had some conversation with the finance minister that a government in opposition is run from Parliament. You are having this engagement with the IMF. You began. And I thought that it was necessary to listen to the other side, which is why, and he agreed with me. It was the reason why we brought the key ranking members and chairmen from the various committees to assemble at Koforidua. And we said to ourselves that we should be blunt with ourselves. The minister should tell us what the initiative meant and what, per the experience of the NDC, what they could also do to enrich the process. We were blunt with ourselves that day. And the meeting went so well. It was part of the consultative process that the minister submitted himself to. Did we need to maybe further engage? I know he further engaged by going to some regions. Was it enough? Some people may say that it wasn't enough. But there are options that we took as a government, right? And it is the reason why when these people, the individual bondholders, came to see me, I said that we needed to further engage them when they related to non-consultation. Because we can only achieve the best from, engaging. And that is what I would say. So if there is anything lacking, let's see how to plug the loopholes.
It could start with a simple apology.
Come again?
You could start with a simple apology to the people.
Well, you mean from me?
Well, yes, now you represent, you're a cabinet member.
Yes.
And as far as Parliament goes, the whole arm of government, you are the face of it if you take the speaker away. So yes, why not?
When the coalition came to see me and they related to non-engagement, what statement came from me? that nothing can substitute engagement. What did it mean? It meant that if we had not done so, we needed to recline and do so. Is that not apologetic enough?
That people haven't heard the word. I mean, Mr. James, because you're a member of parliament from Swame, I've been to Swame many times. I keep asking that question. In our culture, when somebody is hungry, they don't want explanations.
A hungry man is an angry man.
They just want food. If you can't give him the food,
yes,
you empathize with the person. In our culture, that's what we just empathize with the person. You apologize. You find a way to make the person feel.
In that regard,
I'm asking you.
In that regard, I mean, first of all, you should recognize that even though I'm in charge of government business here, I'm not in charge of economic management. So if you want to extract an apology from me.
No, I'm not extracting.
I'm saying that even if I did
genuinely believe in that, that's necessary.
No, I genuinely believe that there are hardships in the system. And I genuinely believe that we should continually reflect on the policy options before us to further improve. We should be cyclical in this approach and also try to engage as much as possible. I would say that for the umpteenth time.
Yeah, and the apology about this?
But I'm saying that because I'm not in charge of the economy, even if I did, I can't do so on behalf of government. You will require, if indeed it has to be done, to be from the relevant personality. Otherwise, it will be seen as just a sidekick, and it will not add value to the discourse. First of all, let's get back to what the Speaker has said, inviting the Finance Minister. I was not even in the chamber to come to Parliament to explain to us, if he does, and maybe something has gone amiss and he has to do it. I believe the Finance Minister is a humble enough person to engage in that. That is if maybe it turns out that some of the policy options are clearly not sitting well within the development agenda.
He's actually said it before, but the context in which he put it was that I'd like to tell you what all other finance ministers in the world would like to tell you, the Ghanaian people, or the people everywhere, because of difficult times everywhere, that they are sorry. I mean, many who struggle and who are bearing the brunt of the guy say, but that's not a direct apology. You're almost telling us that, yeah, that's what everybody else will say. So I'm saying it because I believe in everybody else. But what about owning it and saying, listen, I'm the boss, I'm the leader.
Let's listen to him when he comes to Parliament.
Finally, let me ask you, another key thing that the bondholders have said is that government is asking for everybody to sacrifice. Bondholders must contribute their bonds, pensioners, conversations, etc. But they haven't seen enough sacrifice from government. Big government size, the cut has not been deep enough. It's even hard to quantify them, and they're expecting government to also reciprocate the gesture that everybody else is bearing their eyes on, and they haven't seen that. Do you agree with them that the government hasn't done enough to show that they are also willing to sacrifice their bit to this?
Well, maybe I would agree if they said government must do more.
Yes.
But to say that they haven't done enough, some people say that they haven't done anything. For those of them who say we haven't done anything, I would disagree. And I just pointed out to you what happened yesterday. And I'm aware that the president has directed that, is it 30% of salaries of the ministers must be forfeited to some other enterprise, that they should forego a third of their salaries, which is significant. And also, government is saying that, look, we are not going to establish any new bureaucracies.
Those measures in the budget of 2023?
Yes. Yeah. They are matters that should be germane to us.
Shouldn't government reduce its size?
If people are saying that, let's look at other areas, this is what you have said. But you can do more. That is something else.
Size of government.
That is another conversation.
Shouldn't it go down? Shouldn't it be reduced because of the times you're in?
I don't know the number that we have now. I thought
you are over 80.
We're over 80.
Yeah.
Deputy ministers, have been taken out of the regional ministers. You remember that?
Yeah. So that's what reduced it to 100 to this kind
yes,
of number.
16 by the stroke of pen, wiped out, so to speak. And I believe 1 or 2 ministries, the deputies have been downsized, I think. So we are getting there. Maybe some people want to see something done instantly.
Desperate times require desperate measures.
So that's why I'm saying that if the appeal is that government needs to do more, that's a different conversation.
Do you agree the government must do more?
Well, I personally think that I must do more. Don't forget.
But what do you think you must do?
They were giving out fuel coupons, for instance. That one has been cut out.
So you no longer take fuel coupons?
No. I no longer take fuel coupons.
As a leader in parliament or as a cabinet minister?
As cabinet.
As cabinet?
Yes. It doesn't come to me. And even here in parliament.
Since when did you stop? Because the allocation was reduced. I didn't know that it had been cut completely.
My ministry, almost nothing. And even parliament here, as the majority leader, I'm not having half of what I used to have prior to 2021.
So you are forgoing your coupons, your fuel allocation as a cabinet minister,
and even as
a leader in parliament.
As a leader,
you've also your coupons.
Many times I'm buying my own fuel.
Okay, you say you feel like you wanted to do more. What more do you feel like you should be doing, and what do you do?
Well, as an individual, doing more means also holding the hand of people in the constituency and even elsewhere who would need your assistance, because we are living in perilous times, admittedly. So if you can assist your brother, there shouldn't be any coercion. You can assist your sister, your nephew, your niece, a colleague, a neighbor, assist, because we are in difficult moments.
And very finally, talking about cutting down, reshuffle has happened. I don't know whether to call it reshuffle. I saw a few of your friends in parliament. Katie Hammond is going to trade. Brian Champon is back as a Greek. Your comment on this?
Well, people wanted to see some new faces and to maybe help generate new ideas onto the table to reinvigorate the administration. And I think that is the purpose of this reshuffle. I've seen some people, apart from the 2 that you've mentioned, Stephen Amoa.
Yes.
Yes, who's come on board. Amin Anta has gone from Deputy Energy to Finance, and he's a very versatile personality. I think that he may also positively affect the Finance Ministry. So let's leave it to see how much it will translate into positivity for government and indeed for the country.
You hope it'll translate?
I want to believe. I want to believe.
Okay, so this is the president trying to respond to the call for what? New faces into the government.
Thou sayest.
They'll say yes. Thank you very much, James Abonsu. Always a delight talking to you. And all the best for this meeting of Parliament, which ends in March, he says. That is the James Abonsu, who's a leader for the House. Tomorrow, by the way, we're going to have Dr. Kislato Forsing joining us, so we can see where they converge and where they diverge. And we'll watch that working relationship. He says he's like a brother. I'll ask him his view also to see whether he agrees, that he reciprocates that belief in his friend and brother. Join us tomorrow, but tonight, I'm grateful that you joined us.